Shalom lekulam. Welcome everyone to our weekly Parsha study. This week we're studying Parsha Lech-Lecha. Parsha Lech-Lecha, it is found in Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 to chapter 17, verse 27. And that's in the book of Bereshit, book of Genesis. And in this Parsha we're going to be touching some subjects about the life of Abraham, how God speaks to Abraham and command him to go from his land, but the word Lech Lecha has a different meaning. Basically, go for yourself or go out of yourself to a land that basically the Creator was supposed to show him. And at the end, we know the whole story. He gets to the land, but he doesn't own the land. The land is basically owned by his future generations. But the thing is that in this parsha we talk about how Abraham was accompanied by his wife Sarai at that moment and his nephew Lot. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk also about the kings that used to live around the area of Canaan, or the area of Gomorrah, and how basically this has to do with the different vessels of egoistic vessels and egoistic nature within us as well. How these kind of desires basically attack or basically not so egoistic desire, more altruistic desire, and how this force called Abraham that comes from the side of Chesed comes to the rescue to basically with its mercy sweeten this justice or this judgment that is in the land. And together with this we're going to be talking all about Melchizedek, the meaning of Lot, the meaning of Melchizedek, and also the meaning of the names of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and how these names are related to the names of God, specifically the name Yehovah. Okay, so I'll see you soon. Shalom and welcome back. Let's start our study in the weekly Parsha Lech-Lecha. Like I mentioned in the introduction, Parsha Lech-Lecha is found in Genesis 12, chapter 12, verse 1. And it ends at Genesis chapter 17, verse 27. And it's in the book of Genesis, the book of Bereshit. So Lech-Lecha is basically not the first word in this parsha. In the parsha, when you read it in Hebrew, what you're gonna see is Vayomer Adonai El Avram Lech Lecha. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 words before Lech Lecha. And I'm not gonna go into details about the Gematria or numerical value of Lech Lecha. There's plenty of material out there that will go over Lech Lecha and all that, and the Gematria Lech Lecha, what it means and all that. We're going to concentrate more in how Rabbi Yaakov Abu Haseira presents the Parsha in a more personal way when it comes to seeing these forces, if you like, called Abraham, these forces called Sarai, Lot, and these kings in the land of Canaan, Melki-Tzedek, and all that. And we're going to concentrate on that. But to go let's go over what the Parsha Lech-Lecha is all about. So Parsha Lech-Lecha talks about basically when the Creator tells Abraham to go out of the land of his fathers. So it goes like, Vayomer Adonai el Abram Lech-Lecha Va Eretzcha. So Hashem said to Abram, go for yourself from your land. And this is basically the whole point. This is the beginning. What you need to understand is this is the beginning of a correction that it's going to start happening with Abraham, and is going to continue with his son Isaac, and also his grandson Yaakov, and then with the 12 tribes that will come out of Yaakov's basically corrections, if you will. Okay, so the Creator commands Abraham to go out from the land of his birthplace, from the land of his father's house, and to the land which the Creator will show you. And we're gonna touch base in this, what all these three levels that the Creator is talking about in here, what he mentions, what the Creator mentions, go for yourself from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. There's three levels in there that we're going to talk about. Also, Abraham comes out from that land with his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot. And we're going to talk about the meaning of Lot, what Lot actually means when it comes to internal forces, spiritual forces. Okay, because as we mentioned before, we read the Torah and we see the story and everything, and it's based in real history, if you want to say like that. But this history is also full of things that will or were put in there in order to give us or reveal to us the light. And this will reveal the light of the Creator through the stories that we find in the Torah. And this is where we're gonna start seeing, that the story of Abraham has much more than meets the eye, right? Just like every other story in the Torah. So then after that, we're gonna see that a famine forces Abraham to depart and go to Egypt, where Sarai is taken by the pharaohs, and the pharaoh, she goes to the pharaoh's palace. And Abraham, or Abram at that moment, it wasn't Abraham named Abraham yet. Are you gonna see why he's gonna be named Abraham, and the reason why? He escaped death because they present themselves as they were, brothers and sisters. And this has a Kabbalistic meaning in it, but we're not gonna go into it because we want to keep focus on something else. And then a plague prevents the Egyptian king from basically having any kind of relationship with Sarai. And then Abram is sent out with his wife, and he gets compensated and everything, with gold, silver, and cattle and all that. And they go back to the land of Canaan. And there, what we find is that then Lot separates from Abram, and Lot goes to the land of Sodom. And in there, he will fall captive of the mighty armies of a king called Chedorlaomer, and three allies that he will have. And then after that, after Lot gets rescued by Abraham and Abraham's allies, we're gonna see that there's a visit that Abraham receives, and it's a visit from Melki-Tzedek, the king of Salem. And we're gonna see who's this king, what does this name really mean. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, about this king, especially people who study Kabbalah from a religious point of view, not specifically the Jewish side, but from the Christian side. They say that this Melchizedek is Jesus and things like that, and that's not it. It's not even close. It's something different. Then he says, God seals the covenant of the parts. So there's a covenant of parts, which is also, it has also a lot of Kabbalistic meaning in it that I will not go into it. But if you want more information, I suggest you study or go to the Sefer Yetzirah with the commentaries of Ari Kaplan. And Ari Kaplan in there will have kind of like a small presentation of what this covenant between the parts mean, and and how Kabbalistically, that can be applied to our personal life. Okay. Then, because Abraham is still without a son or daughter, we're gonna see that Sarai basically gives her maidservant Hagar, and Hagar conceives them uh, a boy, a baby boy, and this baby boy is Ishmael. And then we're gonna see that Sarai treats uh, basically the mistress in a different way, because there's some kind of jealousy and things like that. And for that kind of information, we can go deeper into that as well. But if you really want to know the meaning of what is this all about, just the keyword here is going to be maidservant. Maidservant. Okay, so the maidservant, go to the Zohar and you will find what the maidservant, or who the maidservant is. So here we call her Hagar, and she serves basically Sarai. So she's in a lower state. Sarai is supposed to be in a higher state. So when the maidservant is in a higher state, Kabbalah tells us, that that's kind of like a different way. We're basically not honoring the Shekhinah. We're honoring basically something lower. In this case, some Kabbalah says, we're honoring what is called the evil spirit of Lilith, and letting Lilith take over instead of having the Shekhinah being elevated. We're lowering the Shekhinah and elevating the evil inclination in this moment. Okay, so then what we're gonna see is that Abram later becomes Abraham. The name change from Abram to Abraham, and Sarai's name changed from Sarai to Sarah. And this is all because of an added letter to it, the letter He. And this letter He is the He that comes from the name Yod-Heh-Vah-He. So it has to do with the He that belongs to what we call Malchut, and the He that has to do with Bina. Okay? If we have time, we're going to touch base on those things and all that. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Lech-Lecha. And in the beginning of Lech-Lecha, what is this all about? Okay? Okay, so Hashem said to Abram, go for yourself from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's house, to the land that I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and make your name great, and it shall be a blessing. So what we're gonna see is that Hashem said to Abraham, Vayomer Adonai el Abraham, the name Abram may be broken down into Av, which is Aleph and Bet, and then Ram, Resh, and Men Sofit, which is the final Mem, implying that if you want to reach the lofty level that is called, Ram in Torah and Mitzvot, you should do the following. You should go for yourself, Lech-Lecha, maidservant, from your land, and do not listen to the Yetzer Hara, meaning the evil inclination that will tell you basically, or will show you these pleasures before your eyes, that hey, this is basically, you shouldn't go out from here because this is where you're gonna have, or you have everything that you need when it comes to material and egoistic things, right? And then this is all the three levels. The first level is that go for yourself, or from yourself, from your land, and then from your birthplace. So now it comes to a different level. Basically, Rabbi Yaakov Chaseda says, I do not look at the place or the purpose of your birth as being basically only for the purpose of fulfilling the physical desires. And then also to come out from your father's house, right? And basically is that just because your ancestors acted in a different way, they didn't respect or didn't do mitzvot and good deeds or anything like that, that you cannot or should not do the same. You should be different. You should go out of that place that is called the Father's house. And even though uh, basically the whole meaning here is that even though you would like to stay there because you have the pleasures of the land that is giving you everything, feeding your egoism as much as you want, and also that whatever you're thinking, I was born here, I have only one life, let's enjoy life, let's do whatever we want, or whatever I want. That's not the purpose. And also that I'm doing this because it's a tradition. My family was never spiritual. Why should I become a spiritual person? Why should I seek spirituality? In my family, that's not something important or anything like that. So that's why you need to get out of your father's house. The symbolism of that um, verse is that just because those before you did not perform in such a way, you don't have to behave that way. If you receive that call that Abram received, you have to basically get out. And then it says, to the land that I will show you. Okay? Uh, so basically, do not look at the land or the place that you are or the position or level, spiritual level that you are as, well, I'm comfortable here. I should not, why should I bother myself, torturing myself, meditating, doing this kind of stuff, learning about the names of God, learning about, as Kabbalists, you're gonna find yourself learning a little bit about ancient astrology or astrology based on the Sefer Yesid and things like. Why should I study? Why should I bother myself wasting my time in a book, reading a Kabbalah book, instead of wasting my time in a way that I really want to, which is maybe doing a barbecue, maybe drinking a beer with my friends, in the bar or something like that. That's the way some people see life, or watching the game or watching the movie that I want to to watch, for because you know, it's a movie that I've been waiting for so long to watch and things like that. And that's the kind of thing, we go through Lech-Lecha every day. We go through this call every day in which the Creator is telling us, get out from yourself. Get out from these things that are ingrained in your brain by the way you were brought by the environment that you're living in, and change your environment. Because that's the only thing that we can do in this life is we need to change our environment. Once we change our environment, we will be influenced by that environment. Like, that environment is an environment that is helping us to achieve spirituality, an environment that is inspiring us to be spiritual. We will achieve spirituality. But if we are in an environment that doesn't do that, we will be influenced by that environment. So you can be from a family that influenced you in the past, not to follow spirituality or anything like that. But if you change your environment, you change the way that you basically deal with other people, because that's the real, free will that we have. We don't have free will when it comes to where we're gonna be born, when, who we're gonna meet in life. What we have free will is in changing our environment and how we're gonna react with the people that we encounter in our lives. Okay, so these things about that you hear there, about that we attract what we think the most. The law of attraction is true to a certain extent, but it's not true, when it comes to what they're teaching you out there when it comes to the law of attraction. The truth is that we have a desire to attract something that's called the light. And that will come in different ways. That will come through relationships, through even possessions, believe it or not. But it depends how you react to those kind of relationships with people, possessions, and even with yourself. That that that's the light that you're gonna be basically attaining. Well, that's the level of spirituality that you're gonna be attaining. Okay. And then he says, "And I will make you a great nation." Um, so when it says, "And I will make you a great nation," what it means is that, on the contrary, that you think, that if you follow this egoistic desires, you will attain that you want the most, whether it is money, love, and all kind of stuff. But on the contrary, if you follow this Lech-Lecha call, coming out from yourself, coming out from your egoistic uh, desire, what you're gonna find is that every good action that you make, every mitzvah that you make, and when I say mitzvah, you have to remember mitzvah means correction, uh, corrections, and everything that you do, every prayer, every word creates an angel. And that's the meaning that I will make you a great nation. A great nation means, that every single mitzvah that you fulfill creates an angel. Keeping Torah, mitzvot, and doing good deeds, will increase the number of legions of holy supernal creatures that will stand by your side, so you can basically defeat the evil inclination. And then something very important. It says, "Ve'avarachecha." I will bless you. I will bless you. Basically, I will transform your life in a way that you will become apart from everybody. Does that mean that we need to get out, and not be part of society as a whole? On the contrary, as Kabbalists, we must participate in society. We must be part of society. We shouldn't be like the monks. We shouldn't be, apart from society. That's basically cheating. If you don't have nothing to fight for, or nothing, basically, how are you going to fight your ego when you're not dealing with people that will make your life kind of like impossible sometimes? And that's how you test yourself. That's how the real test comes in life, when you're dealing with people that they're part of you, because we are one soul, yet you find yourself that you hate them and they hate you somehow, right? Because we're all egoistic. Even though we say, I love you and all that kind of stuff to each other, in reality, the "I love you" that we say is an egoistic "I love you." I love you because you are feeling something in my vessel, not because I love you because I'm feeling something in your vessel, So think about that. And then he says, "I make your name great." Make your name great. So his name was Abram. And Abram basically doesn't have any relationship with any name of God. But then when he had the hay, which we're going to see at the end, then we're going to see that just like Isaac and Jacob, his name is going to be related. And in this case, Abraham is related with the name El. Okay? While Isaac and Jacob are related with the name Yohevah, when we're going to see with the Gematrias. Okay? And it shall be a blessing. So this is something that we also need to make sure that when we do these kind of changes, we change our life, we change our environment, we come out from our egoistic desires, and the Creator, basically because of the changes that we're doing, the Creator help us change, because whoever comes to purify will be aided, right? The Creator not only will somehow change our name or energy, who are we going to become, but also that we will become a blessing. What is a blessing? A blessing is the coming of the light directly from Bina to the rest of the lower vessels. So we will be that conduit that will bring down this type of energy to the world. So that's something that we need to keep in mind when we are studying this Parsha, because this Parsha is talking about us. He's talking about Abraham, but he's talking about us, how we need to start doing this type of corrections in our life. Okay, so Now we're gonna talk about something here which is about the name. When he says, I will bless you and make your name great, and it shall be a blessing. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and it shall be a blessing. So when he says ve'abarachecha ve'agadala shemecha, I will bless you and make your name great, has the numerical value of 45, which is the same numerical value for Adam. And what is that connection, right? Adam Harishon was in the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden. Garden Eden is basically Atzilut, right? Subsequently, he sins and he falls down to the lower worlds, right? But Abraham, he rectified the damage of Adam Harishon, and at first he was outside the land of Israel, which symbolizes, the exile of Adam Harishon. And he gets a call to go to the land of Israel, which is symbolizing Gan Eden, which is Atzilut. And this is why, go for yourself from your land to the land that I will show you, And let's study this a little bit more. And I will make of you a great nation. Ve'esecha legoi gadol. These correspond to what it says, God of Abraham. And then ve'abarechecha, which means, I will bless you. He will bless with what? He will be blessed with a son, in this case, Isaac. Therefore, son of Isaac is when we're praying, we say Elohei Abraham, Elohei Isaac, right? Then why we mention Elohei Yaakov? Because ve'agadala shemecha, I will make your name great. This corresponds to Elohei Yaakov, God of Yaakov. Okay, so when we are basically saying the prayers, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Isaac, Elohei Yaakov, when we're praying, basically we're connecting to these energies that Abraham was promised with when he got out from the land of Ur. And that's the same thing we need to do as well. When we get out, we attain these energies as well, which are the energies of Chesed, Gebur, and Tifaret, which at the end, they combine and become Israel, which is the middle path. V'haya baracha, and it shall be a blessing. Basically, that what he does, he's going to become a blessing. This is why Magen Abraham, the shield of Abraham, comes into play, right? Now, how do we really think Abraham Avinu will mind if the blessing included in Isaac and Jacob? How Abraham Avinu will think or will mind that this blessing that the Creator was saying was included in Isaac and Jacob as well. So this is how it happens. The numerical value of Abraham with the Hey, Abraham, is 248, which is 8 times the name Yohevavhe, or Hashem's name El, not Yohevavhe, El, okay, which is Aleph and Lamed, and has a value of 31. So you take 31, you multiply by 8, and you get 248. The numerical value of Magen, which is the shield, is 93, is actually 3 times the value of the name El, which is Aleph and Lamed. Abraham names allude to that name El, but Isaac and Jacob they allude to a different name. So the numerical value of Isaac, which is 208, is 8 times the name Yohevavhe, which has the value of 26. Okay, so 26 times 8 equals 208 equals Isaac. While the name Yaakov is 182, that's 7 times the Yohevavhe. Yohevavhe basically 26. 26 times 7, 182. So If Abraham would have stayed without the hay and he was just Avram, his name also would not be wouldn't have be a multiple, for the name El, the Aleph Lamed, and there will be no reason to distinguish him from his two, from his son and his grandson in this case. Okay. But when we conclude the blessing, right, we say Magen Abraham, the shield of Abraham, right, which is a multiple of Aleph Lamed. So in this case, what we see is that there's a relationship. If Abraham was supposed to be a blessing, he was supposed to get a blessing, and that blessing was going to come from that added letter to his name. And that added letter to his name was the reason for him to then be connected to that name of God, El. Okay? So now let's go to chapter 14, verses 1 and 2, and it says, "And it happened in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Kedar-Laomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, that these made war on Bera, king of Sodom, Birsha, king of Amorah, Shinav, king of Admah, Shemever, king of Seboim, and the king of Bela, which is Soar." Okay, so according to the writings of Rabbi Yaakov Haseira, he mentions that he even wants us, to go back to basically 4:23. In which in the previous parsha we talk about how these Yeser Hara 7 names, and if you want to know more about that, that's in Talmud Sukkah 52a. It says that each name here, these 7 names, represents a force that use or schemes against human beings, and it constantly changes strategies in order to entice us, to sin. A person's evil inclination strengthens itself against him every day. This is according to Sukkah 52a. So this is the meaning of these kings. And when you really look at it, what you need to see is that seven has to do with these 7 Lord Sephirot, what is called sons, Serampin and Mahut, right? Serampin and Nukba. So as you have these 7 Sephirot that are Sephirot of light, we also have 7 Sephirot of darkness. So this is Sephirot of darkness, what he's talking here. So what you're gonna have is in the names, these 7 names, the 4 actually stages of this name is Michshol, a stumbling block, which is it blinds a person's eye to seal his heart, and if the person falls in a way, that it's hard to get up again. Then Eben, a stone, hardens a person's heart like a stone. It prevents him from repenting. And then Ra, which is evil. This is this is a name because indeed it is the evil inclination that is doing all that. And it occupies man to do bad things and all that. And then Orel. And then Arel is basically circumcised. And this pushes man into a deeper and deeper until he sinks deeply and denied not only the commandments or the corrections of the Creator, but it also denies the existence of the Creator, the existence of something that has created everything. So it has to do with the covenant, right? It's denying the covenant as a whole. So let's start studying these verses, and it happening these days, by a May. It happened in those days in the case of strategy or a definite tragedy. It can be read as a construction by Yahi, Vav, Yod, Yohe, and Yod, O be it, referring that here a person who pursues or follows the Yetzer Hara is wasting his or her life in this world. And then it talks about Amrafel Kino Shinar, which alludes to the stage of youth in a man, in which man thinks, that he can do whatever he wants and he can get away with it, right? Then Arioch, king of Eliasa, this name Arioch is derived from Aroch, which is long, and basically it's like at the age of 20, man begins to consider improving his way, interested in some teachings and all that kind of stuff. But the Yetzer Hara will come with something that is called stone, which is something that I mentioned. Stone is one of the second, there were four evil things, stumbling blocks, stone, evil, and uncircumcision or circumcised. The first one, the king Shinar that I mentioned, has to do with youth, which is according to Habayago Haseira, Na'arut, youth. But in this case, the Yetzer Hara makes basically a stumbling block, and to make sure that this person falls really low and think, that I can do whatever I want. Then Orioch, king of Eleazar, the Yetzer Hara then puts the Eber. The Eber, then the stones, it hardens the heart, telling him that there's no rush. Take it easy. You have your whole life to repent. Just do whatever you need to do because you have a full life. You will live basically a long life and you will be able to repent at the end. Then Kedar Laomer, king of a land, the name Kedar Laomer has a numerical value of 570, which is the same as Yetzer Ra, which is evil inclination. So, in the name Elam is related to the word Ma'alim, which is to hide. This is another Yetzer Hara hides within man's heart, And then we have Tidal, king of Goyim, and what basically is trying to tell us that one evil action will lead to another evil action. So, implied by the word Tidal, the name Tidal, which is comprised of the same letter as Ve'al Dat, against religion, a person as like a member of other nations, like the Goim, commits sins and does whatever he wants and all that. This is symbolized by the Orel in circumcision, basically the denial of the covenant. And we're not talking here about nations. When I say nations, I'm not talking about France, Spain, England, Russia, the United States, China. When we say nations, we say nations. Nations in Kabbalah means egoistic desires. Israel are altruistic desires, okay? But when we talk about Israel, we're not talking about physical Israel. We're talking about spiritual Israel, right? So when we talk also about religion, we're not talking about religion in the sense of religion as we know it. Religion in Kabbalah has a spiritual connotation, has nothing to do with ritualistic actions that we do in the physical realm. We can use those tools, but those tools are not the end. They're a mean to achieve the real religion, which the real religion is a connection with the Creator, a tevekut with the Creator, right? Okay, so these kings actually make war on Bera, king of Sodom, Birsha, king of Amorah, Shina, king of Admah, Shemeiber, king of Sedoim, and king of Bela, which is Zoar. So, like we said, these names are names that have to do with 7 names, have to do with evil inclination or klipot. Now they're mentioned 4 names here, 4 kings. And the names of the 4 kings allude to the forces employed by the Yetzer Hara at different times in life, right? So Sodom refers to the heart. The heart is basically kovetz, homed. It is implied when we use the Atbash technique for Gematria, which we have mentioned in other classes, exchanging the letters, the Aleph from the Tau, the Beth by the Shin, and things like that. The letter Samek in the word Sdom, we're left when we apply the Atbash, the letter Samek in the word Sodom, we're left with the same letters of the word Homed. Then Amorah, this allude to the eye, to the name Amorah, which can also be read as Ain Morah, eye that guides. Basically, it's that guides the person towards the negative side of things. Then Atma, this allude to the ear. When Rabbi Yaakov then he explained why Atma has to do with the ear, because Atma, the word Atma, and substitute each letter with the ensuing letter of the alphabet, the result is the letters Bahnu, which have the numerical value 63, the same as Hosen, the ear. And that's basically, if you have Atma, you have Aleph, Dalet, Mem, Hey. So you substitute those letters for the next letter. So Aleph gets substituted by Beit, Dalet by Hey, Mem by Nun, and Hey by Vav. And that's how he gets to that conclusion. Sevoin, this is the mouth for the word Zvi in Aramaic, implies one's will, And then Rabbi Yaakov has said that it's citing Daniel chapter 5, verse 19, whoever he wished, which is Sabeh. The mouth says whatever it wishes, whether it's good or bad. And death and life are in the hands of the tongue, according to Mishle 18:21. We have mentioned in other lessons that everything that we say, every word that we say creates an angel. And that can be a good angel or a bad angel depending on what we do. So if we are doing good things like praying, learning, so we're creating good angels. We're using our tongue or words to talk bad about other people and things like that, we're creating evil angels. Okay. Then Bela is an expression of consuming. Bela means consume, which is basically the egoism and the hands that destroy, basically. And as so, Mahama, they make war. The forces of the Yetzer Hara, which we mentioned above, wage war against all parts of man's body, the heart, and all kind of stuff that we mentioned. Then the Bera, the king of Sodom, that we mentioned before, represents, representing the heart. The name Bera is a hint that, as we mentioned, every body part is comprised of good and evil. To this evil part, which each limb, the Yetzer Hara finds a way to exercise control over it. This is Bera, Melech, Sodom. Through this evil, Bera, within a man's heart, Sodom, Homed, which we talked about before when we do the batch, the Yetzer Hara finds a way to control him. Melech, related to the word Loch, to control. Okay? Then Birsha, king of Amorah, through the evil Birsha, part of man's eyes, of Amorah, may be read as Ain Morah, the eye guides towards the Yetzer Hara and controls it. Then Shinav, king of Adma, Shinav may be read as Shone Av, it despises its father, and the name Adma refers to ear, as we mentioned. Shemever, kings of Seboim, the name Shemever may be read as Shem Ever or Ever, which means placing the limb, and Seboim representing the mouth, which we talked about it before. And the king, Bela, which is Zoar, as we mentioned, Bela alludes to the hand that destroys. And Tzior is comprised of the same letter as Ain, Rej, Sadik, which is Eretz, from the word Eretz, tyranny. And then it says, Kol Ele Abdo El Emek Hasdim Hu Yom HaMelech. All these kings had joined in the valley of Siddim, which is now the Salt Sea. That's Yam Melach. And these kings had joined the Yetzer Hara and all its forces along with the organs of the body joined together, and leads a person to sin. The valley of Siddim represents the world in which a person falls deep and is ingrained. And the Yom HaMelach, which is the Salt Sea, is referring basically to this word. It appears sweet, but in the end is salty and bitter like wormwood. This is quoting Rabbi Yaakov Kaseira. And let's see. So what we're gonna see is that then Rabbi Yaakov Kaseira talks about how the word, was done, and how these kings ruled and all that, and how these has to do with how the soul actually enters the Yetzer Hara, and the soul are battling each other in order to gain possession of a person. Okay, but because of lack of time, we cannot go deep into it. But we are going to touch these concepts in our long-term studies in the book of Genesis. It's called Opening the Gates of Creation, in which we're gonna study the book of Genesis in more depth. Right now, we're studying the Parsha, and we have to go over it as fast as we can because 1 hour is not enough. But over there, we have 1 hour, and that hour might take us, just studying 1 or 2 verses, because we're gonna study really deep, and we're gonna be also studying it through the sources like the Zohar, like Sefer Yetzirah, and a whole bunch of other sources, not just one source. Okay, so let's go to chapter 14, verse 12. And they captured Lot and his possessions, Avram's nephew, and they left, for he was residing in Sodom. So in Shar HaGilgulim, Hakdama 23, he says that the name Adam refers to the physical body of man. It is actually the spiritual entity and housed within the body that is called Adam. When man sins, the spiritual entity called Adam fades and ceases to shine. We therefore find the optimal name for man is Adam, whereas the word Enosh, which also connotes man, is an inferior name. When man follows in the straight path, he strengthens and illuminates the spiritual layers known as Adam, and has truly earned the title Adam. But if he does not follow in the straight path, he diminishes and lowers this layer until it ceases to shine. If so, why should he be called Adam? Instead, he should be called Enosh. So the spiritual layer is like the Yeser Hatov, the good inclination, that helps man to serve the Creator. And the numerical value for Lot is 45, which is identical to the numerical value of Adam. The Yeser Hatov is worthy to be called Avram for two reasons, and this is Avram without a hey, right? No Abraham. First, because it teaches man to keep Torah. It points the direction to good deeds and charity and justice. And in this way, it is like a Avram, like we mentioned before, a father of great stature, a father of lofty level. Second, Hashem is the ultimate Avram, which is a father in heaven. And the Yeser Hatov, which is, in this case, we were talking about, the Yeser Hatov is worthy to be called just like the Creator, because the Yeser Hatov guides man to serve the Creator. So when it says they capture Lot and his possessions, it means that the Yeser Hara and all the forces capture that spark, the spiritual layer known as Adam, that has the same numerical value as the name Lot. It's Ben Achei Avram, Abraham's nephew, but in reality, this is the son of Abraham's brother. It can be translated that way, because it's referred as Ben Achai Avram, the son of the Yeser Hatov's brother. As they, according to Rabbi Yaakov Haseira, as they both have a similar close relationships to man's body, they both lead it on the straight path and has only its best interest in mind. Okay. And it says, Vehu Yeshev Sodom, for he was residing in Sodom. The spiritual layer main purpose is to awaken the heart, Sodom, and that's why you have Lot, who has the same numerical value of Adam, living on that level called Sodom. And we mentioned that Sodom symbolizes or alludes to the heart. And then we have that a fugitive came and told Abram, who dwelt in the plains of Mamre, the Amorite, was the brother of Echol and the brother of Aner, who were allies with Abram. And it's very interesting because it says, Ve'ava ha-pali'it ve'yaged le-Avram ha-ivri. Why it says, Avram the Ivri, which is very interesting here. So Avram, it says that Avram, let's go to the fugitive. The fugitive came. So the fugitive means, basically it's allude to a mitzvah that is not extinguished yet. A mitzvah that basically remains, a spark of light that still remains. And this spark actually, it gives this force Abraham a hint that you need to do something to rescue this other light that is called Lot. And with the assistance of the Yeser Hatov, which is symbolized by Abram, it gives Gidim, it strengthens him, and the word Ivri, it relates to the word Ha'avara, which implies removal. This person, to the sin who has committed, has removed the Yeser Hatov from himself until now. And then when he mentioned that he dwelt in the plains of Mamre. Actually, the primary dwelling place of the Yetzer HaTov is with the giant lights called Ruach Nefesh and Neshama. But then when it says that in the plains of Mamre, this implies the level. What level was it? Mamre refers to Neshama as follows. The main letters of the word Mamre are Mem Mem Re. If we take the ensuing letters of the Aleph Beit to these letters, the result is Nun Nun Shin, which has the value 400, which is the same numerical value of Neshama. Then it says the Ha'amri, the Amorite. The word Ha'amri is similar to the word Ha'amarta. You have distinguished, as in the verse you have distinguished Hashem, and this is from Devarim 26:17. In other words, the Neshama is the most higher level of the soul, and is basically the purest of all of them. And then you say Achi Eshkol, the brother of Eshkol. The Neshama is the brother of Eshkol. Eshkol represents Nefesh. If we apply the Atbash to the first two letters of Eshkol, meaning the Aleph and the Shin, it becomes Tav, and the Shin becomes Bet. Second, we apply the method of Yag Bacher to the next letter, to the Kaf, it becomes Beit. Third, we take the final letter, the Lamed, unaltered, so we don't change that, right? The result is Tav, Bet, Bet, Lamed, which is a numerical value of 434. You add the Koler, which is 1, to the value, and it gives you the value of Hanefesh. Eshkol, therefore, is equivalent to the Nefesh. And this is very interesting because you can see how Kabbalists use the Gematria in order to dig deeper into these words, because each letter in the word is a vessel, each letter in the word has a meaning, and when they're combined together, you have to take them apart. It's like having a chemical component, and then after the chemical component, you have to look at the molecule. You look at the molecule, you have to divide it into what kind of atoms we have. Then the atoms, you have to divide it how many electrons we have in that atom and all that. And if we go now in science, we can go deeper and we can see, these smaller particles that made that atom. So that's what Kabbalists are doing with these letters of the Torah. They go deeper, and with all these different techniques of Gematria, or techniques of going deeper into the meaning of the word, they can get this type of insights into the Torah. So after this, we're gonna see is that Abraham then goes and rescues Lot. He feeds this king, and then what happened is that basically this vessel of Chesed, this embodiment of the forces of Chesed, basically overcomes the forces of Din, the forces of judgment, and rescues this spark that was supposedly lost. And that spark is basically the spark of Adam in the name Lot. And in chapter 14, verse 16 says, and he brought back all the possessions. He also brought back Lot, his kinsman, with his possession, as well as the women and the rest of the people. So the Neshama, Ruach, and Ruach, Neshama, Nefesh, and Ruach return to their original place, and the spiritual layers once again are in order and ready to illuminate. So when he says Vegam et Lot, he also wrote about Lot. His kinsmen, basically, when you read it in Hebrew, uh, kinsman basically in Hebrew in this way, Achiv, meaning his brother. As we mentioned before, Lot has a numerical value of Adam, referring that spiritual layer called Adam, or that spark of Adam, is basically what is driving or is similar to that Yetzer Hatov, the good inclination. And then he mentions Vegam et Hanashim, as well as the woman. This refers to the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. And this is something very interesting. The letters, this is a note in the book that I think I found very interesting. So perhaps one way to explain this is that the letters Nun, Shem, and Mem of the word Nashim are an acronym for Nun is the Nefesh. The letters immediately preceding the Shin is the Resh, which is for Ruach. The letter immediately following the Mem is the Nun, which is the Neshama. Alternatively, the word Nashim is similar to the word Neshama, which is often used as a general term for the three aspects of the soul, Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. So, I think I put it in the graphics, so you can understand what he's referring here, and the reason why, as well as the woman, refers to the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, because of that. You substitute one letter for the following letter. So instead of Aleph, if you have Aleph, you substitute for a Bet. In this case, you have a Shin, so you substitute for a Resh. If you have a Mem, you substitute that one for a Nun. And then it mentions Ve'et Ha'am, the rest of the people. This refers to the body parts or everything else. So it's like a revival. It made Abraham, or when you connect to this force called Abraham, you are not only saving that spark of Adam that is almost dormant, almost disappearing, you awaken that, and you awaken also in the parts of your body, because the heart is where our desires reside, and in there, that's where Lot is. The spark of Adam is. We need to start creating something called, or developing something called, a soul, and this is what Abraham comes to do through this thing. So now let's go to Melki-Tzedek, king of Salem, who brought bread and wine. He was a priest of God, the Most High. Blessed him, saying, "Blessed be Abraham to God, the Most High, maker of heaven and earth, and blessed be God, the Most High, who has delivered your foes into your hand." And Abraham gave him 1/10 of everything. So Melchizedek refers basically to Mikael. The numerical value of Malki, including 1 for the Kollel, is 101, which is the same as Mikael. And if you know, when we're blowing the trumpets on Yom Teruah, we're doing 101 blows that day for a reason, and it's because Mikael is the one that will take the sacrifice that we're making. This basically thing that we're giving to the Creator, or desire to bestow back to the Creator. He's the one that raised that to the altar in the heavens. And then it says King of Shalem. Melech Shalem, can also be read as Malach Shalem, meaning a pure angel. And then bread and wine, analogy to Torah and Mitzvot. Also, some Kabbalists will tell you that it's an analogy of Chokmah Bina coming together and becoming Or Hasidim, to be given to the lower ones. And then when he says he blessed him, saying, blessed is Abraham, he blesses Abraham because Abraham overcomes the Yetzer Hara with his amazing corrections and good deeds. And then blessed be God the Most High, because whoever comes to purify is aided by the Creator. So we cannot be thinking that we're doing this work by ourselves. This is a job that we're doing with the help of the Creator. So the Creator is there all the time. Whether we see as something good or bad, that's depending on our human perception. But the Creator is there to help, to aid, okay? And we're running kind of out of time. We're beyond our 1 hour. But when it comes to Hagar the servant, Hagar, the name Hagar may be read with two words. Agar. There is reward. This refers to a person who learns Torah not with the pure motives, but in order to be rewarded in this work. So Hagar is basically what we call you learning Torah lo lishma. And yes, you're gonna have, what's called songs, results of it. They may not be the holiest thing, but these are good things in the sense, that it's helping you advance. Eventually, you will advance in your corrections, and even though you are studying Torah lo lishma from an egoistic point of view, eventually you're gonna advance and study the Torah from lishma, which is a level that is called for his sake, for the sake of the Creator. Okay? And the reason is lo lishma is because you gotta start from the egoistic point of view. You want the knowledge. You want, how to deal with all these things and all that. And if you don't do it that way, then there's no desire to attain the light. There's no egoistic desire. There's no way also to know or to have this internal basically way of looking at ourselves, where we can see how evil and egoistic is our desire, even when it comes to study Torah. Sometimes we get so much knowledge that we think we're better than other people. And a lot of teachers, of Torah fall into the trap of the Yetzer Hara. And what they want to do is teach in order to show how much they know, and not because they want to help others advance spiritually. And that's not the proper way, but it is a start. Okay? Everything works basically in favor of the Creator. So we cannot criticize them because they're in a process. And we cannot criticize ourselves as well when we fail or we start thinking that way as well, because we're also in our own process. Everyone's in a process of going to Lishma, but we are all starting from Lo Lishma. So it's like Abraham started a family with Hagar, who was a maidservant, but in the end, he ended up having his own child that he desired with his wife Sarai, and that's Lishma in this case, and that's basically a perspective that Rabbi Yaakov Chassid is giving us. Now we're going to read from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar, Parsha Mishpatim, where he says the following: there is a soul called maid, there is a soul called maidservant, and there is a soul called the king's daughter. Each is named after the place from which it is extended or to which it incarnated. And here there is a man, as it is written, a man who should sell his daughter for a maid. It is written about him, the Lord is a man of war, meaning Serampin de Atzilut. And there is a man whom it is written, and the man, Gabriel, in the word Bria, and also should a man, meaning the Creator, sell his daughter, Neshama de Atzilut, who is called an only daughter, for a maid, meaning that she will incarnate into the world Bria, where she is the body of divinity called maid. So who's the maid servant? The maid servant is a little lower. But the one that is above, in this case is Sarah, is basically, and I'm gonna go to different something that is very good to understand. Basically, that the matriarchs, they personify Malchut of Atzilut, and it is basically where they actually, their forces or their lights come from, the word of Atzilut. The maidservant, on the other hand, personify Malchut of Atzilut as it descends lower into the lower worlds, as it is falling, right? And this is why Abraham and Jacob, they didn't initially marry their maidservants, because they didn't want it to go into those lower worlds. However, the ladies, the matriarchs, they recognized that in order to bring redemption to those worlds, they needed to go down to the worlds that are lower, below them. And there was a need for them to marry their maidservant. And because of this descent into the lower worlds, they were able to reconstruct Malchut and create the necessary alignment of forces in order to bring what we call the redemption or the correction of all these vessels that are below. And this is why when we talk about the names of the maidservants, they appear when it's written before those of the matriarchs, and this is in Genesis 30 verse 4 and Genesis 30 verse 9, in which you're gonna see Rachel gave Jacob her handmaid Bilhah as a wife. Then she, Leah, took her handmaid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. And we know that Sarah did the same thing. And it's because it is necessary for these forces to go lower in order to reconstruct and start doing those corrections from below up, and give to these vessels, so these vessels can basically give these forces sons and daughters, meaning Parsufins that will be created in order to achieve that ultimate redemption, ultimate correction of all things. And that's the meaning of a maid and a maidservant. Also, if you want to look at it in a different way, and that's the beauty of Kabbalah. Look at these things in different levels, in different ways. It's that the king's daughter can be, this is going back to Zohar, the king's daughter is the neshama, the maid is a ruach, and the maidservant is a neshama. So think about that. In order to create redemption, we need to start from the neshama, ruach, and then nefesh, ruach, and neshama. So the king's daughter is a neshama, the maidservant is a ruach, and the maid is the nefesh. Okay, I mentioned neshama twice. Make sure you got that right. The maid is the nefesh, and that's how we need to see it. And this is basically what is happening here. We have the Shekhinah is a neshama. Sarai is basically what we call a incarnation of the Shekhinah as well, but in this case we can see Sarai as Shekhinah, or Sarai being the Ruach, and then Hagar as the Nefesh. And from there, Abraham needed to build up, to construct this new system in order to achieve the corrections necessary to achieve the next level, which is called Yitzhak, which is the level of judgment. But judgment that is going to be later, we're going to see that needed to be sweetened by Abraham himself, who is Chesed, which is going to see that in the Akedah in the future Parsha. This is all I have for now. If you have any comments or any questions, as always, you can write those comments below if you're watching YouTube or if you're watching in the from Facebook. If you don't want to put your names out there and your comments out there, like most of you are doing, just feel free to go to the website and go to the contact page, www.receivingtheupperlight.com, and ask any questions. I'm spending plenty of time answering questions, and these questions are very important because they are questions that are helping you understand these concepts, but at the same time I'm gaining a lot of insights as well, because forcing me also to look beyond what I am trying to convey here. And some of you, the desire of some of you, is helping me as well to learn more, because are questions that are very interesting, and sometimes even after I answer your question I continue researching because I find it very insightful. And like I said, it's all the creator. We advance together. I'm here teaching you this, but that doesn't mean I'm more advanced than you or anything like that. We're all on this together. I'm just here facilitating and giving some of the light to you, and at the same time I'm receiving light from you guys, so thank you very much for the support of the comments that I'm receiving and all that kind of stuff. Is really, really good, encouraging to continue with this project. Also, as some of you might know, we in Receiving the Upper Light, we study Kabbalah, but we are also associated with or basically cooperating as well, and working together with Kabbalah for All. If you're interested in doing connections during the week, and prayer during Shabbat, prayer during the week, prayer during the new moon, and all that, please go to www.kabbalahforall.com. It's Kabbalah number four all.com, and there you can uh, see the events and when these connections are going to happen and all that. So please go and look at that website and connect with us as we're connecting with the Creator. And the more that are together connecting, the more critical mass we can create in order to attract the forces of correction to this world. So thank you very much, and I see you in the next study of the Parsha next week. Shalom.